Hi, Jack.
Hey there, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for joining tonight.
Glad I can participate, even if it's only remote.
Hi to both of you. Amanda just walked in the door, I think.
Okay.
Hello,
Oh.
how are you? Yeah, Jack called in and so did Abby, so we have it tomorrow. Well, I don't know. Yeah, good question.
So,
It's all right.
Co-vice chair.
I am, but I've never done this before.
Hey, Will.
Well, so you even get the gavel. Bam.
Yes. Power is mine.
Abby, I should have sent you an email in advance, but I appreciate you taking the helm tonight.
Oh wait, Jack is here, but
He's online.
I'm
Just
still-
called it.
I think Amanda's got it covered.
You need the agenda.
But
also I've never done this before, so if I'm supposed to say something specific.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
All right, I call the meeting to order. First on the agenda is business from the audience. Doesn't look like anybody, well, maybe there's somebody online. No, there's not. Okay. No business from the audience. Huh?
You're not done already.
The next thing, are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
No, there are not.
We will move to approval of the minutes of the meeting of August 15th.
So there's one little typo in there. I don't remember what it was on the top of my head. Something to the page. Down at the bottom. It's ignorable, actually. It's just like the tense of a verb. You know, the whole mix there.
I do, yes.
It's near, it's like that paragraph. This is page. Since I can't find it again, we're making diligence, that's it.
Oh, okay. If they're
Making
making
diligence progress, it's just a typo.
Okay, so changing,
Diligence to diligent, yeah, right?
yeah, I'll circle it.
Okay, change made, I second the motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the meetings with a correction. Is that correct? Okay,
That's good.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. And now the urban renewal administrator for report to presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so the main item tonight is taking addressing one of the tasks of the 5-year action plan for the West Side District, and that is setting performance and equity metrics. So we've got our engagement plan that we reviewed and accepted, created a missing middle housing construction incentive. We have the housing constructability analysis complete, and that will be presented to you on October 28th. And so next up is setting these performance and equity metrics. And these are, so we know our goals, which are in the West Side Urban Renewal Plan. essentially putting resources behind the TSP, Transportation System Plan, the Affordable Housing Strategy, and the multi-jurisdictional parks master plan. So those are broadly our goals over the life of the district. What these performance and equity metrics are meant to do is to pace ourselves, to track our pace towards achieving those goals over the life of this district. And it's also a communication tool to help overlapping districts, the public, understand what it is we're valuing, what it is we're measuring, what it is that we're trying to achieve in concrete, number terms. And so we've created these draft performance and equity metrics that are in your packet. And these were developed with Echo Northwest, who helped us work on some of the other tasks on the action plan. And they were chosen to be one, measurable, so they can be quantified. There's a number attached. Two, they're informative. We can place a value judgment on them based on where we can sort of presuppose and prejudge what would be a good, a bad level of progress. And obviously they're connected to the overall goals of the district. So that's why, so I have a whole list of metrics in your packet. So hoping to go through them quickly and then have a discussion of one, am I missing any that you have in mind? And then two, do you think that these are valuable, informational? Can they be more concise? I think most likely we should cut these down to a smaller number. But I wanted to present kind of a larger menu of options to you at this time. And then once I've gotten your input, my next steps are to take this to overlapping service districts to get their input. We really are partners in this work with us, really specifically Columbia Area Transit and the Parks District. They have overlapping missions with the West Side District, but all overlapping districts have a stake in this work. And then next step would be to work with Jackie, our public engagement coordinator, to do some public outreach component of this to get the public's input on these measures. And then I'll take all of that together to the Urban Renewal Agency Board for their final adoption. And then once adopted, I intend to track these measures every year, report back on the progress to you all, but also put it in our annual report that goes to all the overlapping districts and is posted publicly. So any question on kind of the purpose or the development before I go into the specific measures?
Not so much a question, but a comment. I think they're terrific. I also think there's too many, like you said, but I think that's a really good way to start is with too many and to whittle it down. It also helps people who are reading this understand it because it's really clear. I think the meaning of it, what it's measuring, how it's measuring, and then it's easy as reading a stoplight, green, yellow, red. It's sort of intuitive. As to the specifics of the numbers, that's where the research comes in, of course, but I think it's a stupendous job at getting started at very measurable things. And I think it'll also help people who have an interest and want to suggest new things. It gives them kind of a template to follow. It should be pretty easy to say, this is another one that we could have, and this is what it would look like. So cheers to that.
Thank you. Okay, I'll share my screen here. So everyone can be looking at the same metrics. Okay, first up is just tracking the taxable value growth. So as we make investments, we should be growing assessed value. Growing assessed value is the engine that drives our ability to do all the other work that we want to do. And it's also a responsibility that we have to our overlapping taxing districts who have foregone some increase in their tax revenues in order to support our work. So what I have here is an estimate of the prior growth of the district, which was around 4%. And I estimated that by working backwards looking at what building permits had been issued over that time. So this is just an estimate. And then for poor, good, and exceptional, I've got poor being just a continued 4% growth into the future, as if our work is having no impact at all. Good being 9% per year, and then exceptional being 15% per year, which is what we achieved in the waterfront district. Next up is building 1,270 new dwelling units by 2052. 2052 was chosen because that is the estimated life of the district. What I have there is the cumulative new units permitted since 2016. So it's, I think about 25-ish have been permitted on the west side in that period of time. I think I can improve this by trying to figure out how many districts are in the west, how many units are in the west side district in total, but it's going to take a little bit more work, but I might be able to update that. And then, so to get to 1,270, which is basically full build out of the west side over by 2052, we'd have to build 45 units per year. And so that would be the exceptional. And then poor is what we're doing right now, which is about 3 units per year.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
When you say full capacity, is that like land wise, and is that like, because I know there was like a park simulator, also keeping in mind with like the parks goals, and then like if we reach those goals, then with the green space, this is how much like land we have left over to develop.
It's an estimate. It's a rough estimate. But yeah, it should be inclusive of parks, which wasn't going to take up that much buildable land, really. But this is under current zoning, what Echo Northwest thought that the West Side District could hold. Mm-hmm. And then there's just corresponding targets tailored for middle housing. So it would be anything, the number 12 units per year built using the missing middle housing code. Right now we're building about 2 units that hypothetically would have fit within the missing middle housing code. And then 14 units per year of affordable, regulated affordable housing, like deeply affordable housing. This one, you know, once we build Round Road, that's going to jump us up to 130 right then and there. So that's definitely a challenge with this one that we should think about. Next one is just evaluating the general affordability of the housing stock out there. Echo Northwest tells us that we can get a subscription to CoStar, which would provide us with information on market rents and vacancy levels, and we would be able to tie those to area median income. So if we would like to see rents versus income, I don't have that data now, but it's achievable if we think that's a valuable metric. Next is tracking the average size of homes that are built on the west side. So the construction incentive that we just passed is going to provide incentives to build provide market incentives to build somewhat smaller. And so if that is having an impact, you would think that we would see the average size start to tick down over on the west side. So I have exceptional as averaging 2,000 square foot homes, and that's the average home size back in 1990. And then poor being what is currently built out there right now, which is over the last 5 years, the average new home built on the West Side District was just under 3,000 square feet. Getting into parks, we didn't have this data ready, but I think that we'd be able to get it. So we have, and these come directly from the Parks Master Plan. It'd be the share of residents in the West Side District within a half-mile walk of a park. And that's not as the crow flies, that's truly following the road network. And then just general park acreage to population. The Parks Master Plan has a target of 2 acres per every 1,000. right now, on a countywide basis, or I think on a citywide basis, we're at about 1 acre per 1,000 pop. Next up is trails, which is full build out of all transportation system plan identified trails. So that's the West Side Community Trail, Ridgeline Trail, a couple other ones that I don't remember the name of. But this would be being on track to get those all done by 2052. Be exceptional. Then moving into transportation, similar to the trails, just a per year number of feet of new road that to be built that is TSP identified. So that includes minor arterials, neighborhood connectors. Doesn't include local streets. So this is just those major roadways that really open up the full potential of the west side. Having all those built by 2052. The second one is completing a intersection improvement at Mount Adams and Cascade. So if you're driving to Cascade, if you're driving north from like from Stonehenge and going to Cascade, and you hit that stop sign, that northbound intersection movement is already at a failed status. It's already at a failed level of service. And so it essentially cannot take any additional development. It will fail the sufficient public facilities test. And that's been hanging us up with already one multifamily development. So that's kind of the immediate bottleneck. So we put that in there as exceptional, getting intersection capacity improvement there by 2026, and then POR having us take all the way to 2035. The next one was contributed by Pat, and it has to do with the number of permanent bus stops with signs and seating, and they want to get to a level of 100%, and that's in their master plan. And right now they estimate that only 50% of their bus stops have a seat and a shelter. So those are the housing, transportation and parks plans. And in my mind, we have them green, yellow, red. And in my mind, this will be something that we can use as a tool if all of our parks measures are green and all of our housing measures are red. That'll be a cue to us that maybe we should, in our investments, start prioritizing housing investments over park investments, or vice versa. If we're doing great on housing, but no, we haven't built any parks and those are all red. Well, let's now maybe slow down on the housing investment and really put money into parks. So that's for those. But now moving into equity, which is often somewhat connected to housing, but it's really monitoring to make sure that as we invest in the west side, we don't displace people who are already there, or we make sure that it's a place for everyone and it's all inclusive of all income levels. That it's just a place for everyone. So our first equity measure is housing attainability for middle income households. And the way I'm proposing to measure that is the median home value to the median household income. So that's the basic measure of affordability, is price to your ability to pay. I think that's more informative than just looking at price, because incomes go up too over time. So this ratio tries to bring in both aspects. The ratio of median home price to median household income was below 6 to 1 back in, I think it was actually close. Do I have it in there? I think it was about 5 to 1 back in 2012, and it's steadily climbed and now is approaching 10 to 1. So the average, or the median home value, is 10 times the median household income in Hood River right now. So I have as exceptional, bringing it back down to where we were in 2012, and POR making no progress and staying where we're at today. Next up is attainable home ownership. I think that this one's kind of an interesting one because is it inherently better to have to own or to rent? I don't know if that's the case, but certainly there's the ability to own is something that we probably want to achieve. And so this is a measure of tracking how many people receive their property tax bill at the residence for that property. And that's an indicator, usually if it's a rental or if it's a short-term rental or long-term rental and it's investor owned, they'll get that property tax statement at their house in Portland or at a PO box. But someone who owns their house will usually get their property tax statement sent to their house. And so I can pull assessor data and look at how many homes is the mailing address the same as the primary address. That makes sense. And it's not perfect, but I think we can watch it over time to see are we trending up or down. Next is a balanced mix of household incomes. This one is maybe the most esoteric, but so I'll be interested to get your input on it. So mean household income is the income of all households in the city divided by the number of households. And the median household income is the number where 50% of households make more and 50% of households make less. And if you have some very high income folks, you'll draw up that average income without the median changing. And so the further the mean gets away from the median, the more we're being skewed by very upper income people. So the mean household income in Hood River was about 20% higher than the median back in 2012. And now the mean household income is 50% higher than the median household income today. And so similar to some of the others, I say poor is sticking where we're at. Exceptional would be going back to where we were in 2012. This one also takes some explaining. Looking at being a place that for not just all incomes, but also all stages of life and being a place where young families have a place in town. So school enrollment is going down statewide, I think nationwide, just for demographic reasons. But Hood River has always been, the share of our population, 0 to 19, has always been significantly above the state average. We've kind of had more young people living in Hood River County than most other counties in Oregon. But that's been steadily declining. So we used to have 3% more children ages 0 to 19, 3% more than the statewide average. And that's declined now to 2%. So good would be going back to where we were in 2011-12, and then poor would be if we fall all the way to just equaling the statewide average. And then last up is fostering small businesses, making sure that we don't displace and push out local small businesses. And so I understand from Echo Northwest that as a governmental entity, we can apply for, and it's a whole application process to get some data from the Oregon Employment Department that will tell us exactly how many small businesses are in the city. And so if we want to go after that, we can monitor, are we maintaining the number of small businesses, or is it declining, or is it growing? And then lastly, and this is, I'd say, the one exception where we don't have a good exceptional and poor, because I didn't know how, if it was appropriate to set targets for different demographic groups in the city, but it did seem important, particularly as urban renewal can cause displacement, that we monitor for the demographics and we examine and think about the root causes of any changes if we do see any significant changes. And so I believe racial demographics are not available for the West Side District through its it's not big enough to be a census tract. I think we'd have to get it at the county level. So I think but the West Side Elementary would be mostly folks living in the West Side district. So I think that can be our kind of closest level to look at. And I believe we can get demographics for West Side Elementary enrollment from the school district. Yeah. Oh, thank you for sitting through all that.
It's really helpful, to hear you explain it, because it's a lot more curriculum, with better questions maybe.
Mhm.
If I'm not interrupting, it occurred to me that those first few graphs where it's sort of flat blue line and then the projections. When I first glanced at that, I thought, oh, the blue line is because there's not much data, but that's totally wrong. It's almost a flat line because nothing being built. Then it might be nice to have an overlay of where the building's happening, because obviously it's happening, but it's definitely at the other end of the spectrum. And to see that, because that should come down when some of the builders that are interested in this project are building up that blue line.
Yeah, so this is so this one for the 12 is, are you talking about like more expensive versus less expensive houses?
Yeah,
'Cause-
it's to overlay the most expensive, middle expensive, and least expensive as we go, to see what happens to if those lines start to come together a little bit.
Oh, that's
This might be interesting.
yeah.
And that made me think maybe it would be nice to have, if you could talk them into it, some builders that would be interested in participating in this, and like it's holding them back. It'd be nice to have that perspective from them to say, you know, X dollars is what's keeping me from doing this. And then we'll know how many zeros are in the number.
Yeah.
To know whether it's worthwhile.
Well, you're queuing up the constructability analysis really well, because that's
Okay.
that's essentially what Echo Northwest did, is they ran the pro formas for different housing types and looked at what the delta is.
Okay,
Mhm.
cool.
Do we have like information about this? I know like this is not about West Side, but do we know like what the building in the other parts of the city is like and how it compares, or like? And should it be the same or more than like outside the West Side district? Or, I mean, I don't know, I'm just kind of curious personally about that. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
pertinent to the whole thing, but.
those are like my intro slides to the constructability analysis, and I was thinking whether or not I should bring them in here or save them for later. But just verbally describing we were building about 40 to 60 new housing units citywide through the late 2010s, and that has dropped. I think we're on track for about 24, like 10 this year. So we have really dropped off a cliff. And I had to pull individual data to figure this out. So I actually looked at every single one of these addresses, and it's pretty clear what was happening. Is we had Seaver Crop got built out. You had that Consolidated Land and Cattle was the name of the developer, and also Mike Kitts, but it was the one that there was an annexation for in the southern part of town. You know the one I'm talking about? On not Belmont. Anyway, that was a big development. And then Mike Kitts did Tanner Ranch. And so, but those were like what was left, and they've been eaten up.
Avalon.
Yeah, kind of near Avalon, yeah. There's still one big property that I think just transacted over by Avalon. But we're definitely, but like nothing like Seaver Crop. So, like that's where we were, and then we've in the last few years gone down like this, because really all there is left is the West Side, where there used to be other.
And so that doesn't count, like if somebody in town has a single unit on a property and then they tear it down and they build 2 units or something, like. Is that counted in that stuff too? I mean, of course, it's not gonna be to the volume, but.
Yeah, I have that counted. Yeah. Let me see if I've got that. I don't think I put that in here. Oh, I'm pretty sure I didn't. No, I just have West Side. Yeah, sorry.
It's only not like points for up 6. I didn't either. That's great.
So what do you think about keeping the overall target and maybe, should we like eliminate some of these targets like this one, I'm especially the regulated affordable housing target. We're just gonna, the target is to build, if we're doing 14 per year, we'd get to 120 by the year 2032. But we're gonna get to 130 in 2027 just with one single development. So that's a
Yeah,
challenge with
it's
this.
hard to measure all this stuff,
Yeah.
obviously. With timing and like availability of money for people to do things like this and
Yeah,
the energy to do it, so it's always gonna be fits and spurts and steps more than these straight lines, but over time. The lines straighten out, so,
mhm.
yeah,
Well, I'm wondering like with the size one, I like it, but will that just kind of naturally happen? If the houses are priced at a certain point, or the ratio is there for the equity, or. Does that just kind of, is that a natural consequence of meeting the other goals, or does it need to be its own specific goal?
Yeah, what do you? I put it in here as a measure of specifically was our construction incentive having impact. But I do agree, right, the overall goal is general supply and affordability, and we do have other measures for that. So this is kind of an intermediary measure.
Yeah, I mean, I like it, I just don't know like,
Mhm.
how many do we want to get down to, so how many do we need to get rid of, or if it's possible to like. Smush two together. But I don't know, maybe that's worse.
I don't know that it really matters, I feel like the overall goal is to try to answer the overwhelming call to like solve part of this problem. There's so many businesses in town, and it seems like a good pitch to start with, because it's clear, it's easy to follow, it gives you a yardstick that everybody can read, and it may not be completely thorough yet, but it's an awful good start.
Mhm. So you think keep that tracking
I feel like
that?
keeping them, yeah,
Mhm.
until they seem like they're not really giving us information that we need.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I was thinking there's a lot on housing and they're all good goals, but you were asking, sounded like you wanted to condense some or eliminate a few.
That's what I was thinking, just
I would
for
lean
communication
towards some of
purposes.
the housing ones and just the size of the housing, just in and of itself, that one, to me personally, isn't as informative as the others. The low income, I think it says something has to have public subsidies, so. That one would be a little bit more in our control, so those are the two that I'd look to eliminate,
Mhm.
assuming you want to draw some. But
One of the big metrics from a construction standpoint is construction cost per square foot, price per square foot. Like that's a metric that most people have at the tip of their tongue when they're talking at the lumberyard or the lawyer's office or the realty or whatever. And I don't know if that's a valuable metric for this, but it does, despite the size of the house, that's a metric that pushes you up into that height, and it's $500 or $600 a square foot back down towards. What Mike's been doing for a long time is trying to get it to $100 a square foot.
Mhm.
If they were below that for a while, those days are gone, so. Done beverage and. This part.
So tracking,
I don't know how you even do that, I really don't know, but.
yeah, data
But
availability.
but that's a number that a lot of. People in position to. Do all this work would be quite familiar with.
I don't know if we have any control, because that's a material and labor.
Yeah, it's like
aspect
the
of it.
cost of the house,
Yeah.
But it could be compared to incomes or, something, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's another way to look at some of those other numbers, I suppose. I don't know how you get it.
Yeah, because I'd have to have folks open their
Maybe
books.
that realty
Uh-huh.
subscription thing, how we get that.
Yeah.
Also, I do think that's important, like looking at the renting and.
Okay, yeah, that one sounds. Oops.
the other one I had a question about was the roundabout at Cascade Mount Adams. Well, it's certainly needed, and I understand it's not functioning well. seems like it's very specific rather than a broad general goal for a district. That's just my own thoughts.
Yeah, good point.
Also, you got two on parts. One is what the distance, a half mile or something like that versus the acres per population. Maybe you could drop one of those if you're looking to condense the list.
Okay.
And then on the demographics, is it, what kind of demographics? These are school children. We're talking
Racial, single racial, make sure we're not displacing.
racial, not an income or anything like that. I don't know how you would get that.
I think there's racial demographics. I think there's free and reduced cost lunch demographics for income.
I think not all lunches are free, so.
Oh, so maybe not. Okay.
But also that doesn't really give us like ages for elderly people or demographics for people like who don't have school kids or elementary school age kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of did a trade-off of like, it's not a really good age range, but it's targeted geographically well. I think otherwise I'm limited to the county.
Well, and it does, I guess, really need the information for the one where the young families or the, age, I guess, but maybe you can get that from another source as well.
Not, I can do it on the county level. Yeah. Pretty sure, yeah.
It's hard to ask to get a lot of these numbers because you can't really rely on voluntary numbers. And it's hard to find a source for involuntary numbers that are.
For an arbitrary boundary that we set ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. But again,
Mhm.
And well, I know you were talking about reducing them, but I think actually one that I would like expanded or maybe subcategories is the affordable housing. Right now, I think it reads 80 to 120. Well, if we come in at 120, we could meet that metric, and yet we're not getting any at the 80. So I would like to see 80, 100, and 120, maybe sub metrics or something like that. I think the 80, the lower numbers are real important for a community like ours.
It kind of goes to Clint's point about having it be kind of a color coded stack.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
remember that 100, that's the average, that's the average low wage, it's not. So there's gotta be a little bit of a range there to still hit, to be labeled low or whatever.
But we're talking about the median, not the average.
Yeah, so like it should be closer, like 2 points off of average instead of 10, sure, is that what you mean?
I was talking about
20,
the
sure.
number of affordable units at 80% of AMI, 100
Yeah,
to 120.
so that's 20% either side of average. Yeah, instead of 4% either side of average or something. Closer.
Yeah, and that's the goal that this one is trying to track, but the metric or what I can actually measure or what I propose to measure to indicate progress towards that goal is just the number of new dwellings permitted using our missing middle housing code. So there's actually no guarantee that those are going to be affordable at that range anyway.
And I would hazard a guess that there are incomes that are 1,000% of average around here too, or 3,000% of average. And so that range, while it seems pretty big, it's still.
Yeah, I would be curious to know what the 80 to 20, like what the numbers are there.
Yeah.
Me too.
But yeah, if this goal is like based on things that we've already set up, I see why you're using it.
Yeah, I have those numbers on my computer. I can go grab them.
I'd be curious to see what, yeah, like where.
Let me just grab
How
them.
how many families are we talking about and? How many groups do we really need? It is so fascinating, like keep you up till 3 in the morning, digging the spreadsheets.
Well, I have what constitutes an affordable housing price for 80 to 120. I don't have how many households, the number of households those
What
are.
is the actual dollar amount that's 100%?
100% is, I don't have what the,
Ballpark is fine.
yeah, well, a housing, a house affordable to someone. With a household at 100% is $330,000.
And median income.
It's 70,000.
7,000.
Yeah. So I should say these are from two different data sources. What I just quoted you from is from an affordability report that comes out from the Oregon Housing and Community Services. And what I just told you for area median income is a number that I know from the census for 2022. So I can't guarantee that the OHCS and the number I just told you are from the same years, but roughly the same.
And so between 56,000 and 84,000, that would be the range.
Yeah, so and 120%. 120% should be able to afford $405,000 house. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a real good job you started here on good effort. So I support the metrics and. I think it's fine, pardon me, I think it's fine to reduce them if you want, give them comments. Oh, one suggestion I had was maybe you label them with a number metric, H1 or H2 for future reference if somebody wants to talk about it or whatever.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
And then finally, there's a typo on page 13, the housing says monitoring the rental market. It says with, that where should you go?
Yep, I see it. I'll change that. Mhm. Okay. Great, well, thanks. So I've got, think about ways to track and report more gradients of affordability. We've got to think about tracking inputs to housing production costs like price per square foot. Consider eliminating or consolidating one of the parks measures, going with either acreage or walkshed, and consider eliminating the roundabout intersection one, because it's really kind of binary. Did we build it? Did we not build it?
And also like, yeah, I don't know if, like, I don't know where you're coming from, what you need to get them down, because I think like they're all valuable, so. If you can have a lot, like, fine.
Okay, that's good input too. This isn't too many.
I think simple is better, and I agree with keeping it shorter. The attention span is only so long. But I like it all.
Yeah.
Be hard to choose. Yeah.
And if the roundabout, like, I get it not being to be on here, but that's pretty huge. If we can't build anything until that thing is fixed,
At least not the major.
then it's kind of like.
Pretty
it
encouraged
needs
that
to
that's
be
top
changed.
list of things to fix, because it's a mess.
Mhm. Yeah, it's important for truck movements too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my way out.
And so, yeah, maybe it doesn't need to be on this list, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's still important.
Great.
You know, that could be, that's a pretty major, it's very specific, but it's also quite a major hurdle to get over to get a lot of this other stuff going,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think the constructability analysis you're gonna hear, and then also this will lead into the last step in our action plan, which is the project sequencing and prioritization. And reading the tea leaves, I'm pretty sure that intersection is gonna bubble up to the highest and first priority. Yeah. Great, okay, well, thank you. Any other input? I don't mean to cut anyone off.
I don't know if any Jack or Abby's online, I don't think anything to say.
Yeah,
So there.
thank you so much.
Great.
All of this information.
Thanks, Abby.
Will, great job.
Great, thanks, Jack. Okay, and then I just have some administrator updates. URAC reappointment timeline. Amanda and Jack's seats are up for reappointment at the end of this calendar year. So we will advertise for the two seats on Friday, October 25th. And I'll send Amanda, you and Jack, I'll send you the applications directly. And then we'll also just post on the website. And then the deadline for URAC applications for the two seats will be November 25th. And then we'll hold interviews with the Urban Renewal Agency Board on December 9th. And hopefully make reappointments that same night to then start the new calendar year in January. Update on getting financing for the middle housing construction incentive. Mid-Columbia Economic Development District's Oregon Investment Board has approved the program for $500,000 in financing. Contingent upon the city matching that with another $500,000 loan. So altogether that would bring us to $1 million. And that keeps us on track to launch this incentive in January. Yeah. Wanted to let you know that I've issued a request for qualifications for a broad list of on-call professional services. So I listed for as broad as like planning and economic development analysis, all the way through engineering and construction management. And my goal with this is to vet and pre-qualify a small list of firms that will be at the ready for us. Like, we don't know exactly when the ODOT jurisdictional transfer will happen and when we'll get some money. We don't know when a developer will come to us with, a bright idea for a development agreement on the west side that might help us build an important road. So much of what we do is opportunity-based. And so this will allow us to get a kind of cadre of folks at the ready to jump in when we need them to tackle any project that might come up. So the first things I intend to use them for is the taking the first couple projects in the Heights streetscape plan and taking those through full design and getting ready to so that when we get control of the road and we get the money, or even if we just get control of the road because we have enough money as is, we can go right to bidding for construction, the very next day. And then, yeah, so that'll be the first thing. So we've had 20 firms so far registered as interested in a myriad of different specialties. The RFQ closes on November 11th, and then we'll go rank and then interview. And I hope to have bring this in the first meeting in January for contract issuances. And my thought is to do a 5-year contract with the firms that we choose. And last up is noting the joint meeting with the Urban Renewal Agency Board. This is a special meeting, so I really appreciate if you can make it. I know it's not on the normal meeting schedule, but I did want to have everyone have URAC and the agency board both have the ability to hear the constructability analysis presentation from Echo Northwest. It gets to a lot of the answers to a lot of the things that we were even talking about today about just the economics of why nothing's getting built on the west side. So if you can make it, that would be great. Some logistics for that meeting, if you can make it. It's also the graduation for the Civics 101 for the city class. We did a Spanish speaking Civics 101 where a group of cohort learns all about the city for the last few months. We're gonna hold that graduation right at 6. Shouldn't take very long, should be like 10-15 minutes. Then we'll adjourn or recess the city council, and then the joint meeting will start probably around 6:15, but it'd be good if you got there at 6. So when you come in, you just sit as normal in the audience. The front row will have reserved signs. That will be for the people graduating. Then when we recess, we're gonna push tables together in the middle of the room. agency board members will come down, sit at the middle, and then advisory committee members will sit at the tables as well, and they'll be oriented towards the TV, which is where Echo Northwest folks will be giving us the presentation. Right? Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Will.
Well,
Oh, yes, Abby.
just confirming what the date of that meeting is again.
Cutting out a little bit, but I think you asked for confirming the date, and it's October 28th.
Perfect, thank you.
And Will, I'd like to be there, but I'll be out of town, so
Sure, and it will be recorded as well.
so we can do it later.
Yeah.
And also, I just wanted to comment, I appreciate you moving forward on the heights stuff, getting stuff ready and not waiting until the next step or whatever, being proactive. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, don't have the rest of it, but I think if there's anything else from the members of.
Nope.
And then I can adjourn the meeting.
Gotta hit the gavel.
Meeting adjourned.
Yeah, hit the gavel.
Good night.